COVID has been bad. There's no doubt about it. But if we want to find a silver lining for workplaces, it may be that it has forced them to finally try some new things that turned out to work really well and are absolutely worth keeping around once we get the virus under control. In this video, I'm going to cover 5 essential things your company should keep doing after COVID. For example, why did it take a global pandemic to make many companies let employees work from home on a large scale? The fact is, business leaders can be depressingly conservative, not in the political sense, but in the sense that they can be very reluctant to try new methods and approaches. The Israeli psychologist and Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman once said that cognitive illusions can be more stubborn than visual illusions. Here's an example. In this image, all the horizontal lines look wavy, right? Would it blow your mind if I told you that every one of them is, in fact, perfectly straight? Here, let me show you. Perfectly straight. Okay, now you know the horizontal lines are straight. What does your mind see? I bet you still see bendy lines. When he worked with business leaders, Kahneman found it nearly impossible to convince them that their beliefs were wrong, that they had been fooled not by visual illusions but by cognitive illusions, even when he had solid evidence. They'd usually need to see it in practice. Well, COVID has now shown us in practice that there are some things we can do differently at work, and we should keep doing those things after the pandemic is over. Here are the 5 most obvious, in my opinion. The evidence is clear. Working from home is great for productivity because employees who work from home waste less time on meaningless tasks and spend more time doing things that actually help coworkers and customers. And yet, many bosses have been very reluctant to allow it. Back in 2013, when Marissa Mayer was CEO of Yahoo, she completely banned working from home. This was not a popular decision with staff and confused many observers, and it definitely did not help the company. But with COVID lockdowns, many companies have now tried it and found that, what do you know? It works! And it works great for office-type jobs. And not only are employees more productive from home, they also spend less time commuting to and from work, which is great for their health and for the environment. Now, I'm not suggesting that we completely abolish the office, okay? I am suggesting that we let it be up to employees themselves where they work on any given day. However, the challenge with working from home is how we maintain good workplace relationships and make sure that people still feel connected to their team and to the workplace. Here are 2 ways you can do that. One might be to let each team coordinate a weekly office day. One Belgian government agency that I visited makes each team designate a weekday when all team members come to the office. All other weekdays, they may be in the office or they may not. So that one day a week when the whole team is there is a great chance to see each other, coordinate work, and maintain coworker relations over coffee and lunch. And another way you can do it is to measure employee happiness and get input from your people. With a tool like HeartCount, you get weekly data on how people are feeling, and you get their feedback and input on what they need right now. And maybe most importantly, you show people that you care about them and their ideas and opinions. Click up here to see why measuring employee happiness is so important. I think this pandemic has proved once and for all that no one needs to wear a suit and tie to do great work. The corona dress code has leaned much more towards sweatpants, pajamas, hoodies, and yes, bathrobes. And yet, work still got done. We've also learned that bed hair and beard stubble are no barrier to doing great work. Weird, huh? Corporate dress codes have always confused me. And I've seen some bad ones that not only try to control people's clothes, but also their hairstyles, beards, jewelry, tattoos, and even colognes and perfumes. Let's get rid of them altogether. This can be a little scary. I talked to the HR manager of a Danish bank that had just abolished their dress code. And he told me that soon after, on a nice warm summer day, he saw one of their customer advisors walking into the office in shorts for the first time ever. And even though this HR manager was the one who got rid of the dress code, it still made him nervous to see a coworker in shorts. What would the customers think? So here's what he did. He took a deep breath and reminded himself that his coworkers are all responsible adults. And if this person was wearing shorts, it meant that he had made an informed decision that this was going to be okay with his work responsibilities that day. And nothing bad happened, and the bank is doing better than ever. People can think for themselves, you know. The dress code for the Swedish National Railways says that you can't wear shorts, even on hot summer days. So some male train operators started going to work in skirts, which are allowed according to the dress code. Now, I am not saying that everyone should come to the office post COVID in pajamas, okay? But I am saying that if you don't trust your employees to dress themselves, then you have bigger problems. Dress codes are dumb and should be abolished. Before COVID, businesses did not hesitate for a second to fly their people halfway around the world for meetings, events, or conferences. That has nearly collapsed, and I think it should stay that way. Virtual conferences have proven that they work just fine, and so have remote meetings. So let's do that much more from now on. This will not only save a ton of time and money, it will also help fight the climate disaster, and it could even help prevent possible future pandemics by reducing the potential spread of diseases. So my advice is, from now on, make events and meetings virtual by default and only make people travel for business when absolutely necessary. During COVID, employees are no longer in the workplace where managers can keep a constant eye on them, and so they have had much more freedom and autonomy lately. For instance, the Harvard study I mentioned earlier also found that we currently do 50% more activities by personal choice because we want to do them and we see them as important, and half as many because someone else asked us to. We need to keep that going. Micromanaging people is not only terribly inefficient, it also makes people unhappy at work and demotivates them. My favorite quote on this comes from Herb Kelleher, former CEO of Southwest Airlines. A financial analyst once asked me if I was afraid of losing control of our organization. I told him I've never had control and I never wanted it. If you create an environment where the people truly participate, you don't need control. They know what needs to be done and they do it. And the more that people will devote themselves to your cause on a voluntary basis, a willing basis, the fewer hierarchies and control mechanisms you need. I completely agree with Herb here. Control is an illusion, and people are happier, more motivated, and more productive when they have freedom at work. Meetings are one of the most hated workplace activities. Studies show that the more meetings people attend, the less happy they are at work, and that meetings are the biggest time waster, keeping people from actually doing their, jobs. During COVID, people spent 12% less time in meetings, according to one study. That's awesome. When people are in the office, it's easier to drag them into one meeting after another. With COVID, a lot of those meetings went away and the remaining ones went virtual, where it's easier for people to not attend or to turn the camera off during the meeting so they can get some real work done. So after COVID, let's have fewer, shorter, and smaller meetings. And here's a really simple policy you could consider. Make all meetings voluntary. From now on, let anyone opt out of any meeting if that's best for their workflow on that given day. There is also one thing we should not keep around from COVID. Sadly, studies have found that people have actually worked more hours during COVID than before. Let's not keep that around because permanent overwork hurts people and performance. I have a whole series of videos on that. Again, COVID has sucked. Hundreds of thousands have died and many more have gotten seriously ill or lost loved ones. The lockdowns and travel restrictions, while absolutely necessary and effective, have affected many of us negatively as well. But there is one thing that gives me hope. We have recovered from a similar epidemic once before. In 1918, the Spanish flu swept the world. But once we recovered from that, what happened? The Roaring Twenties happened. A period with amazing jazz music, new fashions, new dances, and a more open society where people were much more free to be themselves. What if we could create a similar revival in our workplaces? What if we could take the things we learned during COVID and create organizations where people are free to work where they want and when they want without constantly being told what to do or dragged into meaningless meetings? If we take the right lessons from this pandemic, we could have a roaring 2020s at work, and that would be awesome. Stay happy.